I've consulted with several young women who had stopped having menstrual cycles completely, and they were drinking 4 to 5 quarts of water a day, and
Wow.
no estrogen left. So what happens is
Wow.
if the anti-diuretic hormone gets suppressed, and that gets secreted somewhere of a small region in your brain, in the hypothalamus, and there's a process called co-secretion. So other hormones get released at the same time or stopped.
Wow.
and
Yeah, because we don't,
and
yeah, without that, we
yeah,
don't want that to happen. Oh gosh,
right.
this is
So
wow.
the precursors of your sex steroid hormones also get suppressed, and your thyroid hormone. All these things are affected. So drinking massive amounts of water has consequences. People need to be really clear on
Wow.
that.
Hey everyone, Josh Bellieu here, Ultra Life Today, talking to Dr. Petra Davelaar, naturopathic doctor, graduate of Bastyr. Like a lot of doctors, experienced a crisis within her own nuclear family that spurred her on toward moving into this world of naturopathic medicine, and then ultimately focusing on something called Deutenomics. We're talking about deuterium, something you find on the periodic table of the elements, and how it's something that is really affecting mitochondrial health, and we're unaware of it. And Petra's taking us on a dive into this world to understand it, understand how it works in the body, how we can test for high levels of deuterium, and then what we can actually do along the way to lower deuterium's deleterious negative effects in our body. Petra, thanks again for joining us. And again, I wish I could come through the screen and hang out with where you are and take a dip in the little pool behind you there. Yeah, thanks for being here and helping us. You know, I was talking to one of my colleagues off camera a minute ago, and it was just like, I find it so fascinating that someone will focus on something that's such a little known thing and then begin to educate people on it. And then we begin to realize how much that little known thing is actually messing with our physical health, our emotional health, with everything in our environment. So, take us. So I started, I started saying in our last episode that we were going to. You're testing someone. You find out they've got excess deuterium. You're certainly going to talk to them about diet and things, but then you introduce this idea of deuterium depleted water. And I know for me, being a guy that's like a health food store junkie, right? Since I was about 16, I just walk in there. It's like, cool, and you just buy things randomly and start taking them. How does one begin to change their life when they realize they've got excess deuterium? What are some practical things that an individual can do? What do you as a practitioner begin to tell them to guide them on this journey that may have a radical impact on an autoimmune disorder they're experiencing, some other health crisis they've got going on in their life? Where does it start for you?
Yeah. So it's starts by addressing all parts of the lifestyle that someone
Okay.
needs. And you really don't need to jump towards deuterium depleted water. It's really not feasible for most,
Right.
because it's,
Well, thanks for that. That's good.
yeah, no, so just so that's clear. Yeah, if you have a advanced stage of cancer, this is something you should absolutely consider. But
Right.
for most of us, that's not the case. And so thankfully, and we have to just become aware of not deuterium loading, if you will,
Okay.
just by doing that, by changing how much water you drink a day, lowering that, you are basically deuterium depleting, right? That's just one thought.
Wow.
Then changing the foods you consume is important. And, Ultra Botanica has, of course, amazing botanicals that we also know have very specific functions in depleting deuterium by providing deuterium low, hydrogens, because most of these plants preferentially bind hydrogen and not deuterium.
Oh,
So it's a
wow.
low deuterium substrate, if you will, for mitochondria that then can provide, the fuel to make your fatty acids to produce ultimately your deuterium depleted water in your mitochondria. Making sure that you consume foods that are low in deuterium is key. Letting go of those foods that we know are way too high. Just don't touch them. Making sure that you sleep 8 hours or whatever you need, because that is when we deplete deuterium, while we sleep. So all of those pieces are fundamental, and really can shift how someone feels on a daily basis.
So your myth,
it's
you're myth busting here for me, because I've been a guy that preaches hydration, hydration, hydration. But then I also tell people, hey, put the juice of a lemon in your 40-ounce thing of water and get you some Celtic sea salt or some pink Himalayan salt and throw that in there too, because, hydration isn't just about taking water in. It's about really nourishing on the cellular level what's going on to hydrate those cells. But it's like you've got me scratching my head right now, because you said, well, one of the easy things someone could do to lower deuterium levels in their body is to limit their water intake. So how does one begin to preach to the masses who've been hearing 3 quarts of water a day? If you get a gallon, that's fine too. But how do you begin to do that? How does one stay hydrated, and also maybe look at water as being one of the number one culprits for some people for deuterium loading? How do you balance that?
So it's about listening to your body. You need to try and feel the cues of thirst. And if you get thirsty, sit with that for 5 minutes and experience that, and see if your body actually compensates and upregulates your own metabolic water production. Now, what you need to understand is, as I said earlier, we make our own water, and that is metabolic water, we call it. And as you drink your water,
yes, I've got to do it. You've got me thinking I'm thirsty all of a sudden, right?
Yeah. So learning how to sense that you actually need it. If you drink water the whole day, what a lot of people do, and they're being told to do that, right? And by the way, the water segment of the beverage industry is the largest growing segment of all beverages, right? So just know that this is marketing to a large extent. And so we don't really need all that excess water. And in fact, if you drink that much, what happens is you shut down something called anti-diuretic hormone. Anti-diuretic hormone is the hormone that governs the water balance, your electrolyte balance in your kidneys. And if it senses all this water is coming in, it's like, well, we don't have to hold on to anything. Let's just, excrete.
Right.
And it's very funny. In 2016, there was a study done. They were trying to determine the hydration index of 8 different fluids. And what they did, it was funded by the beverage industry. So they took water, they took coffee, tea, orange juice, non-fat milk, fat, whole fat milk, and some hydration fluid, some salty water.
Okay.
And they took 24 healthy young men. They asked them, okay, don't drink anything after 8 a.m. this morning. Come at noon. We're going to give you a liter of water, and then we're going to watch you for 4 hours and see how much you urinate. And you have to drink that fluid in 30 minutes. So they did. And then they started measuring. Well, they stopped measuring at 2 hours because all of them had already excreted more than they had drank. Right?
Oh,
we're talking 1.3 liters, 1.6 liters. So you actually causing underhydration by drinking all this fluid.
Wow.
So the only one that was not, the 2 that were not as bad was the whole fat milk, because you're getting milk.
Right.
So some fat,
some
fat. Yep. So that's deuterium depleted.
Perfect.
And the salty water. So people were, again, it was still more than they drank, but not as bad as all the others. So it's a very important paper, and it's kind of just got shoveled away. And but it's fascinating information. So yeah, don't overdrink. Just drink as you need.
hey, I'm feeling a little thirsty. I had a clinical nutritionist friend tell me a couple of years ago, and it went very much against another clinical nutritionist friends of mine advice. And he goes, Josh, you get that 40-ounce thing of water, don't drink it all at once. Keep it with you during the day so that it's available. But he said, once every 15 minutes or so, an ounce or two, it's all good. You'll find. Just do it that way. Be intuitive about it. And I was like, I never really asked him why, but maybe he was learning some things of the thousands of people that he had as clients over the years. He'd learned it's a much better way to drink water. Maybe, that's really fascinating.
I mean, also just think of your ancestors. Your grandparents. Did they schlep around a bottle of water wherever they went?
And they didn't store a lot, and they went and carried it and exercised to get it right for what they needed it for during that day. Interesting. Correct. Yeah. Interesting. So you made me think that there's kind of a hit list, so to speak, or a hierarchy of things. You referenced it in one of the earlier episodes, but I'm sure there's certain things that you would just say, look, if you cut out anything right away, this is going to be one of the quickest. These are my Dr. Petra's top 3 things that if you'll just address these 3 things you're putting in your body on a daily basis that you're not aware, those are probably negatively affecting your deuterium levels more than anything else. What would those top 3 things be? And I'm sure you're going to be talking about drive-thrus and highly processed foods, but give me your list there. Give me a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, basically fast food, all of it, and grains, that's a big one, all grains. And then actually, not even a specific food, but anything that has been exposed to glyphosate in one way or another is a disaster because it just has such devastating effects on how your body can manage deuterium inside in those submolecular pathways. And glyphosate is toxic. It chelates important minerals like copper. It has so many issues, but it really prevents us being able, and this is a technical term, but it's called fractionate, making sure that we separate deuterium from hydrogen in our bodies and get rid of it. Glyphosate gets in the mix, that ends. And as Stephanie Seneff has stated, the name of the game is avoiding at all costs getting deuterium inside of the mitochondria. And so we have to prevent that, and glyphosate will totally mess that up.
This is a super happy rabbit trail for me to go down because you mentioned glyphosate. And when you mentioned that to a lot of people, even people that are trying to study health, they are just kind of like, well, it's just a fact of life. I'm going to be exposed to it even if I eat super clean and I eat organic all the time and I'm not going through the drive-through and I don't eat processed foods and I hardly touch sugar and I've got super healthy fats in my diet. I bet you have some insight that you could give our viewers as it relates to glyphosate, because recently I've heard some people, someone you probably share a mutual respect for, with Logan Duvall, a guy that really preaches a lot about copper and its profound role in our life. And it seems to be really undiscovered, and most people almost think it's bad in the health arena. But is there some practical things for quickly reducing a glyphosate load for someone too? I mean, obviously the thought of eat organic, but we know there's organic and then there's organic. There's different levels of all these foods. What is something that you do when you recognize someone has got a high glyphosate exposure, and what are you able to tell them to do that kind of, because a lot of people think, well, these are just forever chemicals that are going to be in my body, but recently I've even heard people talking about chelating those out. You have any practical advice for us about that?
Yeah, so I would first, and I have some clients that have way higher levels than others. And yes, it's true. There is, at this point, basically an acceptable level that we all have to deal with, because it's omnipresent. It's in the air we breathe. It's on the rain. It's in our water. It's everywhere. So that is an issue. But there's others that have just, extremely high. And it was actually two of my clients who lived in the same area of Los Angeles that had very, very high. And to me, then you have to look at, okay, who's spraying around you? Is it the Los Angeles, garden maintenance
Right.
department? Is it your neighbors? You got to figure this out. You have to
Right.
look. So that has to be eliminated under all costs. And you really need to step it up if you have these high levels to not get any corn, any kind of soy, any kind of wheat, because all of those products have been compromised because they are genetically modified to
Right.
withstand huge amounts of these spraying happening.
Yep.
So they have it. So don't eat those foods. And then we're experimenting with certain binding agents or homeopathics that can try and help you reduce your levels. And so we can only know for sure if that works if we do a whole set of people, test them,
Right.
have them do it for a month, have them be, compliant in the sense that they actually do it, and then retest.
Yeah, and I'm
And
sure.
that's the trickier part,
Yeah,
but there are ways of doing it.
and I'm sure you notice trends among your patient population over the years that allows you to. I mean, it's how we learn, right?
Yes.
You see these people and you take them on a health journey, and then you see another one that's got similar things, and then
Yep.
10 years later you're into this and you're saying, oh, wait a minute, this group kind of had these similar characteristics in this. And so you learn things along the way that probably a lot of people are never going to get their hands on. So metabolic water, expound a little bit more on this idea of metabolic water in our bodies, and how do we determine if we have the right things going on with metabolic water in our bodies? I mean, is it just that, gosh, I woke up and I felt great today, I'm sleeping well, I feel active and vibrant, and there's no such thing as a cold in my life or sore throats or things like that? I mean, is health a good indicator that you're doing a lot of things right, or not necessarily?
Yeah, absolutely. So clear thinking, waking up before your alarm goes off, just waking up because you're ready for your day, and you feel refreshed. Being able to perform athletically in the way you want to do so, not needing a nap, staying active, all of those things, feeling well, that's huge. That will tell you you're on the right track, right? You don't always have to test all of these things. A lot of it is just, common sense.
Explore a little bit more with us related to metabolic disorders. You kind of covered the thyroid thing generally, our lack of iodine, the fact that we can really mess that up with abundance of water, and things like that. What are some common metabolic disorders that you see going on with people that are quickly responding to this concept of depleting deuterium in somebody's diet and in their environment, should I say?
Yeah, so another segment of my clientele are men in their 50s, 60s, early 70s that I consult with for cardiovascular health.
Okay.
And trying to find this balance between the statin world and, eating no fats versus actually eat fats and use other nutrients to reestablish the health of your very important endothelial function. And so that's a key piece. And I love these patients, and I love the work, and I love the knowledge that I'm learning and gaining. And as per usual, there's a whole set of data that's been completely omitted. Not just a set, a giant piece of the puzzle that we were never really talked about for 300-400 years now. So that all affects that piece. So I love that too, metabolic health. So the integrity of the endothelial lining, the glycocalyx complex, that should be populated by nanobubbles. I'm going to say lots of fun things here, the
Nice.
integrity of that is key to cardiovascular health. So that's another one of my great passions. And deuterium plays a role in that because the the lining of the layers of the water that form on top of this glycocalyx complex is determined the thickness of it by the deuterium content of VU in the body. So it's all related, and it's all
Wow.
super fascinating. Yeah.
Wow. So do you find something, because you mentioned some major things that are hot buttons with me, like statins and stuff like that. How quickly, and I know in our world right now, we're also seeing a massive uptick, as we know, in unique challenges to cardiovascular health. Give a little hope and inspiration to some men in their 50s or 60s that realize that, I think these days, 25 years ago, Petra, I would see most of these problems occurring in people in their 70s and 80s. Now I'm running into people in their 40s that are having these problems, 30s having these problems. Give a little hope and inspiration for somebody that may be a 55 plus male that comes to you. How quickly, as they begin to implement some of the things that you share with them, can they actually begin to notice changes in their health and go, wow, this lady is not kidding. She's got insights that can very quickly begin to give me some hope again for longevity and a quality of life in raising not just my kids, but hanging out and influencing my grandkids.
Yeah.
How quickly do people notice results when they begin to take your advice?
So, I really think we can see a strong difference in a matter of 2 months.
Brilliant.
And I like to back that up with labs, and I do, and I test,
Nice.
retest. But this is complex. You're bringing something up that clearly we've been dealing with for the last 4 years that has changed the
Right.
health of
Radically,
pretty
yes.
much the entire population.
The entire
radically.
population,
And,
yep.
yeah. So we're dealing with a whole new aspect that most people are unwilling to acknowledge, but
Right.
we have to be very clear on this change that medicine has changed forever since
It has.
2020. So
It has.
in all aspects. So there is that piece that we need to take in consideration. Now, regardless, change can be made, and that is where the hope piece comes in. But it's going to take extra work, and it's going to take some vigilance, and it's going to take some checking certain markers, seeing where you're at, pulling it away. Deuterium plays a key role in all of this, as well as has been shown in some of the published papers. So yes, there's hope. You just got to go to work and be realistic and know what we're up against and do the best we can.
I think one of the hardest things, and I know you understand this, is in this world that is standard of care with a lot of regulatory capture and large health systems, literally, as you mentioned in one of the earlier episodes, that are basically boxing people in and controlling the health paradigm, the way they think about health, everything as it relates to health. And then I come along and say, no, you need to go see a doctor, and you're going to pay money out of pocket to do that, and it's going to be the best. It's going to be the best money you've ever spent, because they're going to recommend you get tests that you've never even heard of before to really drill in on what's going on with your thyroid, what metabolic disorder, what's going on with your cardiovascular health. And not to mention, people will begin to feel better quickly. I've never noted anybody that doesn't. I tell people real practical baby steps. I say, look, if you're overwhelmed by the idea because you go through the drive-through 6 days a week, next week just go through 5 times. And then the week after that, just go through 4, and then 3, and then 2 and 1. And you tell me how you feel after a month of not going through the drive-through. It flips people out. They feel so much better. They don't realize the chemical dump they're putting into their body when they're doing that, and how much better they'll feel just by depleting those things out of their life. But just do it at the pace you can, but just do it like you said, do the work. What's a typical day in the life of Dr. Petra Davelaar as it relates to what you personally eat? Because I know I allow myself on occasion the cheats that I do. Overall wise, I eat a pretty darn clean diet and take pretty good care of myself, but I do not tell myself that I'm never going to have my favorite high butterfat ice cream again that I know is going to be a sugar dump and stuff. And when I want to do that, I'll do it, and then I just don't do it again for a while. So what's your diet look like on a daily basis? I'm curious.
Well, I like to get up early. I'm an early bird, and like to go make my coffee, go sit outside, have the sunrise,
All right, real light.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, real light before I look at my phone, and try to get all the pathways, circadian rhythms activated with my coffee, with my chaga inside of it, and that's it. Then I usually that's around 6, and I usually don't eat until noon,
Okay.
and that would be a higher fat carnivore type of meal.
So you
Um,
actually just introduced the idea that Dr. Petra Davelaar is actually doing a bit of intermittent fasting every day, right?
yeah,
Because you're
yeah,
not eating until maybe around noon. You've had maybe some coffee in the
yeah.
morning, but if you're not introducing a lot of cream or
No
something at
fruit.
that time, then you're in ketosis a little bit every day, right?
Yep,
Okay. Okay.
I am, and I do, and I check it, and I know it works. So yeah, and then I like some eggs in butter, best quality eggs I can find. Sometimes sausages, sometimes bacon, sometimes whatever was left over, steak.
Yep.
That will be my first meal, and then I have a meal later on that usually has some vegetables, either fish, either steak, lamb, whatever, anything that's beautiful on the market, the farmer's
Nice.
market, that I go to, and yeah, that's it. I don't do snacks. I do have a glass of red wine with dinner for sure. That is
Okay.
my treat. And
Awesome.
I will often have a piece of dark chocolate at the end of the night. That's my life. That's what I do. And
Okay.
yes, if it's time, I will eat the most perfect piece of, sourdough bread, and I love cheese, so I would have some cheese maybe before I have my dinner, a few slices,
Nice.
um,
Your
pates,
diet
things like
sounds a
that.
lot like my diet, actually.
Does it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really does. And that was a switch that needed to be flipped for me as it related to learning about the carnivore diet and then meeting people that had been on it for 10, 15, and 20 years that were the picture of health compared to the people I knew that were super heavy on the whole quote unquote vegetarian or slash vegan diet and the unique differences in their health, even the way they looked. And it's like, oh my gosh, and I've got a Native American background as well in my family. And so it just makes practical sense to me to look back at the way they ate, what they didn't eat most of
Hmm.
their lives or very infrequently ate, and go, you know what? And they would gorge themselves at times, right? On
Yeah.
when they had meat and when they had a lot of fat and organ meats and stuff, they would gorge themselves because they knew they weren't going to eat for a while. And even overeating in that way wasn't bad for them,
That's right.
very, very healthy. So
Yeah.
I know there's so much more on future episodes that we'll do. We'll want to have you back. I want to remind people it's super easy to get a hold of Petra Davelaar. drpetrad.com. It's like drpetrad.com, but don't put a period after that doctor. drpetrad.com. We've introduced this idea of Deutenomics. Guess what? You can go to her website and she will kind of begin to whet your appetite a little bit and educate you about Deutenomics. And of course, you can just connect with her. You may not have somebody, and you may have found our interview with her today. It's like, that's the person I would like to be my doctor. So by all means, reach out to her. I'm so grateful that the universe brought us together through Logan Duvall. There's
Yeah.
so many things I plan on learning from you in the future. One last question for you is this idea of Deutenomics still on like the tip of the iceberg on what we know? And do you see things happening in the future, or are there things even going on right now in research around the idea of deuterium in our body at excess levels? Is there some promising things coming in the future that maybe you'll say next time you're going to, hold fast and come back? Are there some cool things going on?
Yeah, I really do think so, because this is so fundamental. A lot of people's interests have been piqued, and
Awesome.
publications are coming out, and new directions of research have to be made. We have to really understand much better how we can make this water, and hopefully we will have home units one day where we
Oh,
can
that'd be brilliant,
just
wouldn't it?
have our own depleted water at home and not have to ship bottles and plastic and all of that business. So I'm really hoping for that. I think we really also need to understand better how deuterium actually gets moved into bone and connective tissue, and how we can facilitate that at a better level, and what the processes are there. And I know people are working on that. So there's so much more. There's so much more. And I know we will touch on that
We will. Well,
because it is a very dynamic field.
Thank you for being a fish out of water and being willing to swim upstream and throw out new things for us to learn. So many people just kind of go with the flow, even when they get into a health lifestyle or something. You're obviously an innovator, like my partner, Adam Payne, who's just such a brilliant guy and is always wanting to listen to new things and learn. Thank you for being that person, Petra. We'll have you back for other episodes in the future. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Okay, Ultra Life Today, Dr. Petra Davelaar. We'll see you soon on another episode of Ultra Life Today. You like what we're doing? Like, subscribe, and share.